Thank you everyone for coming to the April BPEC meeting. As always, we'll start with introductions. Got a few new faces here today, which is wonderful. A few regulars are out, I think, because of spring break. So just say your name, perhaps your neighborhood and what brings you here. My name is James Van Brinken. I'm the chair of BPEC, and I am a keen e-bike user and walker around downtown.
All right, I'm Deb. I live off Cherry, kind of between the Whiteville and Johnson Village. And I walk and bike and
my name is Dean Hansen. I am part of the Rose Hill neighborhood, and I'm the secretary of the Rose Hill Neighborhood Association, and here to speak during the public comment about some of the pedestrian safety issues we're looking to have improved in our neighborhood.
I'm Kyle Rodland. I work for the city and I am the Safe Routes to School coordinator.
I'm Albert Plunge, work for the county, so I'm here, county employee with transportation planning, but I'm also a city resident who lives downtown and bikes and walks and places, so kind of doing the two things.
I'm Emma. I'm a student at UVA. We're here for our public health class.
nice.
I'm Katie. I'm also a nursing student at UVA.
So,
We both live there.
Yes.
I'm Matt. I live in Fry Springs. I work at Blue Ridge Cyclery. Just looking to get more involved in bike stuff.
I'm Meredith. I own Magnolia Rabbit Design Co. Work with the city on a lot of projects, and I lead the Sunday ride for Blue Ridge Cyclery. And what else do I do? That's enough. I live in Fry Springs.
I'm Herb Levy. I live in North Downtown. I am a bicyclist and a bike advocate.
Tommy Safranek, the city's bike and pedestrian coordinator. I'm also a bike advocate. And I live in the more technically Little High neighborhood.
I'm Ben Chambers. I'm the city's transportation planning manager. I work out of MDS here. I also live downtown, so I'm quite often a walker, but I've become quite a biker over the winter. So for a lot of miles on my new bike. And yeah, we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about this afternoon. A whole lot more time.
And I'm Sadie Van Brinken. I live in the Main Street neighborhood, also an e-biker and walker. And I will pass it off to Bob.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, my name is Bob Holdsworth. I live over by McIntyre Park on Oxford. Very active cyclist, and got introduced to this and looking forward to helping out in the month of May.
Natalie?
Hey, oh great. I'm my view doesn't show that I'm a little face, so I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to say anything. I'm Natalie. I'm on city council, and I try my hardest to be the bike ped advocate on city council. So I'm also a e-biker and walker and live near Mead Park.
Awesome. And Bill?
I live in the Willow Mills neighborhood, Natalie's neighborhood, and have been biking exclusively in the city for the last 38 years and hope to do it for a while longer.
8 to 80, Bill.
Exactly. Or 8 to 100, hopefully. We'll see.
Hey, thank you for coming.
Two more show up.
We have two more, maybe a third.
Intros.
We're just doing intros. Why you're here, what neighborhood you're from, that sort of stuff.
Who are you?
Hi, I'm Jen Fleischer, and I live in the Belmont neighborhood. And wait, what else?
That's great.
Oh, I'm here, yeah. You know, because I like all the biking and the walking and the counts, the advising and all that stuff. Yeah.
And she's running for city council.
And I'm running for city council.
Yeah, I'm Peter Krebs. I live in Belmont, and unlike Bill, I don't have an exclusive relationship with Charlottesville. I also bike in Albemarle County.
Well, you can complain to that guy.
Yeah. I was gonna say that part. I'm gonna talk right now, so you can do that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming. Next up, approval of the meeting notes from last month or February, last meeting, and the agenda. I want to propose a slight change to the agenda. We don't have anything explicitly on the agenda as it stands, but we definitely want to talk about Bike Walk Seville branding. That's one of the key things we're going to talk about. So just want to kind of make that explicit. That's the first thing we'll talk about after questions for staff. If I don't hear any objections to that, I'll assume everyone is okay with that and with the minutes from February. Excellent. Public comments?
Yes.
I know, Dean, you're there, and anyone else as well?
Yes. So hopefully, well, I have this, if this is helpful for anyone. So I'm part of the Rose Hill neighborhood, which is, over by the Bodos on Preston, and Rose Hill Drive, of course. So an issue that we are seeing is that or the request on behalf of the residents of the neighborhood, as kind of vetted through the neighborhood association, is that we would like there to be four-way stops instead of two-way stops at Forest and Henry and Concord and Forest. So the issue that we have right now, so this is a very long road with businesses here and then houses towards the back. But it is a very easy road to speed down the entirety of. And if you are, for example, like if the Rose Hill light here is backed up, it's a very easy way to cut through. So people will speed through and then join Rose Hill later here. There's also been a lot of talk about kind of slowing traffic down on Rose Hill because of the school, as well as just safety there. And so there is the additional concern that as Rose Hill potentially becomes a 25 instead of a 35, or has other traffic slowing measures, that is just going to make Forest even more appealing to zoom down. I would say, just anecdotally, like if I'm outside watering my plants, I also see multiple near accidents that happen because there's really poor visibility at the Henry and Forest intersection, which is near where I live. So my request here is basically just like, how do we get support to move that forward? It is popular within the neighborhood. We have a lot of children already, and we have new families moving in, so we're looking to get this moving. So kind of just getting information on how we can get that considered by the people who can make those decisions.
Thank you. Do you want?
I can provide a response, or I can follow up with you afterwards if that would be more helpful. There is a bit of a process to it, and there are some other projects going on alongside that. Just mentioned a little bit, we are looking at doing traffic calming and speed limit improvements and things like that citywide, and that's kind of the work we're working on in City Hall right now. And you'll see some drafts of lists and things coming out fairly soon. And I would expect
is
a lot of
estimate of where stop signs are located part of
it's not, because what we're looking at is traffic calming, and stop signs are traffic control, not traffic calming. So they're treated as a more rigorous thing with engineering. We're looking right now at what we can do to slow down speeds and make sort of the issues with the straightaways dealt with a little easier. So I can give you more background information on that separately. The other thing I'll point to is there's about to be a small area plan process starting up for 10th and Page neighborhood and for the Rose Hill neighborhood. And a lot of this bigger picture, how does the network in your neighborhood work together? That kind of stuff is perfect for that kind of discussion.
Is do you think we would need to wait until that is happening to really see any traction on this?
No, the traffic calming improvement stuff that we're working on internally is we're trying to figure out how we implement that over the next year. The small area plan is probably gonna be a 2-year process, but during that time, we're gonna come in and do spot improvements. We're gonna do some traffic calming testing to figure out like, all right, if we put in a speed table, which is sort of a shallower speed hump, if it's 4 inches, does it do anything? If it's 2 inches, does it do anything? Like, there are some things that we need to test, and Roseville is one of the neighborhoods where we're gonna put some of those things over the summer and fall months coming up.
Okay. And you said your name is Ben Chambers?
I'm Ben Chambers, and I can grab you a card, so this follows.
All right, yeah, I will be leaving because I have a little one,
totally
but yeah, if possible, I appreciate that. I'll grab one.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Dean, just to follow up, so, your neighborhood currently has a traffic calming, request to the city. I think Nels put it in,
Yes, he
what,
did.
12 months ago?
Yes.
And that's sitting in the traffic engineer's office. The city hired a new traffic engineer maybe 2 months ago. So that is on their to-do list to follow up. And I specifically asked about the 4-way stops, and that's why we know this answer very well.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's,
And just to confirm, you were asking about, Forest Street.
Forest and Henry, and then Concord and Forest, so Forest and Concord.
Basically the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dean, that T junction's at the community lab school, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
the community lab schools at the end.
At the end,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Thanks, sorry, visual.
Yeah.
Big round road where people drive across.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes it's like 60 plus going down. So, yeah, any sport, because we have a lot of, young kids, probably cute kid. Influence public things, but
It's even your child.
yeah. And then
You're
Nels.
probably the first person who used that movie.
And Nels was hoping to be here, as he isn't here, but he's interested in this, so thanks for your information on the.
Yeah,
traffic calming.
so it's, I was just saying that, Caleb has the traffic calming, request.
Oh, in that neighborhood as well.
For this specific thing.
Yeah.
So, that's sitting in his, to-do list, but he's just joining, he's trying to get up to speed. So that's one of those things.
Yeah, and I don't know if this was mentioned when I was out of the room, but we did do a neighborhood walk in that neighborhood in recent months, so. We've seen it firsthand, we know what you're talking about and are trying to figure out a way to fix it and problems like that in neighborhoods all over the city, so.
Yeah, well, thanks for the information too, to know that stop signs are kind of, I guess, a different traffic control, so that.
Yeah, they're a little trickier.
There's no.
If you go to our city website and look for the traffic engineer, there's a way to find out what to do with stop signs there, but yeah, from the planning side of things, we're more traffic calming and testing kind of things, so. Welcome.
Hi, just had my piece, so you can repeat everything I just said. Thank you, everyone, really appreciate it. I was going to talk about stop signs, but they did talk about the traffic calming project. All right, thank you.
Great. Bill, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I don't know whether they're in a different category than city streets, but the streets that the city owns and parks, and I'm thinking about the what do they call it, Riverview Park. They're people when they go down there, they're like changing their clothes and rolling their strollers around. But the road, from the design point of view, you look at it and you go, oh, well, this is a 20 mile an hour, 25, 30 mile an hour road. And I'm just wondering if you guys could, if there's any law that prevents you from basically posting, a sign at entrance to park saying yield to pedestrians, yield to bikers, and post a speed limit of like 5 so people can go 10. And the other thing is, I've got to go to some neighborhood meeting, and I'm hopefully I can go to that and then get back in here, but I'm just apologizing in advance.
Bill, are you asking about the whole corridor along Chesapeake, or are you just asking where Chesapeake meets with Riverview Park?
Just inside of the park, once you're actually into
Inside
the
the
park.
park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
I
the
think that's
park
feedback
proper.
that we can pass along, Bill. I know that Parks and Rec is currently considering going to do a access study for that park, and so that may come up as part of that, but if we're just talking about, you know, simple signage, that is something that we can pass along as a suggestion to be put in pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else for public comment? Awesome.
I was wondering if
Yeah.
this is the time to talk about like trying to calm the road in Rose Hill.
You just missed it, man. We just.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna catch up with Dean separately, but
Okay.
generally, yes, we are working on traffic calming citywide. And
Right.
so we'll have some traffic calming stuff tested in it over the next few months.
Cool. Sorry for being late.
And
Yeah, no worries.
no worries.
Thanks for coming. Okay, and we can talk more about that. Questions for stuff.
We could do that too.
Part of the stuff, okay.
Yeah.
Next up is BPAC officer interim elections. In the charter for BPAC, we're meant to have election every October, I believe. Last October, I'd been doing this for maybe 6 months because the October before that, we couldn't find a chair. So it's been pretty short and I forgot. And Winnipeg pointed that out, that just for kind of continuity's sake, we should have an interim election and then pick back up in October, just to make sure everyone's okay
So
with how
today
things
is
are happening.
October observed.
Right, and Guinevere and I, Guinevere is the vice chair, she can't be here today. We are happy to stand and proposing to stand as co-chairs, but we would also welcome anyone else who wanted to get involved. There's also a vacant position of secretary, which no one has yet stepped forward for. So this is an opportunity for anyone else to express interest in serving either now or later. And if not, then I will take nominations for, I guess, co-chairs in this case.
I'm not on BPAC.
Yeah.
Somebody else.
So I'm out. Just to clarify, who is on BPAC? If you've been to a BPAC meeting, you are twice. If this is your second BPAC meeting or more, you can vote for or nominate an officer.
One of the things I want to do is clarify those rules. But that's my.
Do you want to discuss before nominations, but James, or all good? I nominate James and Guinevere as co-chairs.
Seconded.
There you
Yeah.
go. All right.
Okay, thank you. And if you have been to at least 2 BPAC meetings, unclear whether this counts as your second one or not, so I'm going to leave that up. You are technically a voting member and we would like to do a vote. We don't vote on things normally, so this is, we're inexperienced as a group on running votes. But I think we shall just do a show of hands.
Before you do that, let me move that nominations be closed.
Oh, okay.
Second.
There you go.
It's a mixture of so formal and so informal. We currently have a nomination for Mr. Krebs and a second from Mr. Baudet.
Yeah,
Baudet, thank you. For James Van Rankin and Guinevere Higgins as co-chairs. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No offense taken. Okay. We'll take that as passing and move swiftly on to more familiar material, which is questions of staff. Thank you to Ben and Tommy and Kyle for providing staff updates.
Before you move right along, you want to pause for a second and see if anybody is willing to step up to be secretary?
We can do.
Can you explain what the
I think there's
secretary?
lots of-
Yeah, what is this?
Might be volunteering, is that?
So, yes, we have kind of established this new position of secretary because traditionally it wasn't clear whose job it was to take the minutes, and it always fell on the vice chair, but the vice chair has a lot of responsibilities, most of which are unseen. And it didn't seem right that should always be their job. So we're just looking for someone to volunteer to take minutes at the meeting. And if they have time, write up those minutes after the meeting and send them out to the group. So as Herb suggests, if anyone would like to step forward for that role, that would be appreciated. Otherwise, it will continue to be some combination of me, Glenn, and Tommy putting them together.
I mean, I can definitely do that, but this is my first meeting, so I don't know. And I also have not been taking notes so far.
You can ask the question again next meeting. If somebody fills it in and you feel more comfortable then.
Yeah, I'll ask again next meeting. And
then
anything is appreciated. Okay, so Carl, Ben, and Tommy provided staff updates. This is 2 months worth of updates. Of course, for a normal 1 month. We have some printed copies, but not many. Hope you all had a chance to read them. This is an opportunity to ask questions and ask for clarification. Give support for anything that you see happening.
Question about the quick build last night. It finally occurred to me that there's a quick build project that I should have nominated quite some time ago. I sent you an email about that. Is it too late to add something to the list? And
yeah, we're not
I expected.
We're not taking any new things on the list right now. We're trying to basically figure out how we get them through the public service work order system and make sure that they're designed enough for those guys to get stuff on the ground. So we're working with those first 20 that we had. If you have an idea of this, then let me think through where a good spot where it is. I may have to say no. There may be reasons why we can't do it, but
It'll be something that we're already kind of
yeah, that's the
thinking
other thing
about.
is that might be something that we're working on in the background right now. So yeah, send me the idea, or at least resend it to me if you sent it to me already. And
Yeah, it's hard to email, but I'll catch you after the meeting.
okay.
Basically paint.
Cool.
It can be hard.
It can be hard.
I had a question for you, Ben, about the update on West Main.
Yeah.
If you could just give a little bit more
That's the
information about
juicy.
like what that means.
How is everybody so quiet? There's
I know
a
that's
juicy
a
buried in
question.
that. So West Main, so part of the reason.
Which one on this?
I'm thinking about like the change from like a restriping plan, like a longer.
Yeah, so part of the reason we had 2 months of updates is we didn't meet last month at BPAC, and we went to the Active Mobility Summit. We had a great time hearing about the 3-Notch Trail and all the work the county's doing on it, all the great work that other localities in the state are working on their big trail projects. And Tommy and I were super excited, and we went to this meeting in the afternoon with our utilities crew to talk about what's the future of the West Main project. We had been talking for probably 1.5 years at this point of, hey, we need to start a restriping project, figure out what we can do between the existing curbs. So we went to the utilities and into public service, partly to get an understanding of what's the repaving schedule. We lined that up with our restriping plans, and utilities said, you guys are gonna have to hold off on that because we're basically tearing out every pipe along West Main for the next 3 years. And yeah, you're gonna have some maintenance of traffic plans that we'll look at to make sure that the bicyclists are accounted for while we're doing this construction. But doing a wholesale thing in the next year like you planned isn't going to happen. And so that was a huge kick in the gut for me and Tommy. We had been so psyched in the morning, walked out of this meeting, we were just like, oh. And then we were like, man, it was so exciting to talk about the 3-Notch Trail. I wish we were talking about a project like that now. And then we realized, well, we have 3 years to plan for what goes on West Main. And we've got to get from the west side of town to the east side of town, and there's a pretty clear street that runs down the middle of the city that does that. And we just got told we have 3 years to plan for what the solution is. We also know that we have issues on Barracks Road that we studied last year with VDOT. We have issues on Ivy Road. Those are 2 entrances into the city for 3 Notch Trail that are potentially going to be considered by the county study. What does that look like from the city's perspective? Don't we need to be sort of planning for what happens when the county comes in on our west side with 3 Notch Trail? And then if it comes down Ivy Road, that helps us deal with some issues that we have with UVA developing a lot of their property over there, us having a lot more traffic coming in on Ivy Road. And that sort of takes us down the road to what's our next big problem? Well, the corner has a lot of problems for safety, for pedestrians. It's a major thoroughfare. It's a major destination for people. Wouldn't that be great if it was linked up to this regional trail network? And then that leads us to the West Main, and then that leads us to downtown, and we've already made that connection. And then we started thinking about what happens on the east side of town. Do we go down East Market? Do we go down East High? And we started like, this was Friday afternoon, y'all, after we had been at a mobility conference all for the past 2 days. So we were like, really like thinking big thoughts, and we were like, there are all these issues from east to west in town. We've got this big trail project coming from the west of town. We've got this time. Shouldn't we figure out what our alignment is? Shouldn't we figure out what this project is as it comes through town? Maybe the opportunity that we thought we had for doing a West Main restriping isn't there anymore, but now we get to build an iconic trail project and figure out where it goes. So we, went home that weekend a little bit happier after thinking that. And then I think we came back Monday morning and realized we had to explain that to everybody. So right now, what we are working on is sort of figuring out what are the next steps for that process. We're going to be meeting with the county here shortly to figure out sort of how we can make sure that our scope matches up with the scope of their project, that we're not sort of dictating what their project is doing, but that we have a sort of collaborative effort. And then the other opportunity is, okay, while we're doing all that, we can still be doing a restriping project somewhere. We still have needs for protected bike lanes. We still have places where there's lots of space curb to curb. There's still places where we're trying to bring speed limits down from 35 miles per hour in the neighborhood, 25. So if we're not looking at West Main, where else can we be looking? And so we've started to look at all of those different corridors through town, sort of paring back. All right, are they assigned to an existing study? Is there something in the works that's coming up that's going to deal with this? And as we were sort of paring down and prioritizing, we looked at the next places that we probably want to look at a restriping project would be Melbourne Road in front of the high school. Right now it's a 35 mile per hour road. Pretty important east-west connection across the north side of town. And then on the south side of town, we also have a 35 mile per hour entrance into the city coming up Monticello Avenue. We've got a lot of space, a lot of unprotected bike lanes coming through there, and it's really difficult for us to slow people coming down off the interstate as they're approaching Summit Elementary School. Maybe this is going to cut back on revenues for our school zone enforcement cameras that are going in later this spring, but we would love the speeds to be lower on that area. We would love there to be easy bike ped access in that area that people felt safe in. There's an opportunity there on the south side, and then we have Melbourne on the north. So we're going to start moving forward with scoping those 2 projects instead of West Main restriping, which is a bit of a bummer. But we're getting a much bigger project and much bigger scope out of this that helps us tie into a more regional system. So wasn't the update that I was hoping to give you guys when I left in February, but I think this sets us up for a lot of interesting work for the next year or so. And we've got more behind that as well.
One other thing about that though, Ben, is that in between 3 Notch Trail meeting and we had to bump our meeting with public service because we had a meeting with VDOT about West Main and Ridge.
Yes.
So in between.
Yeah, I forgot we had that.
Those 2 things, we walked all over West Main, Ridge, Monticello, Preston, and just saw all the needs in that whole corridor. And then we went and talked to public service. So yeah, it's kind of like put things in a certain light.
Yeah, what's up here?
So it's sort of been the city's approach typically to do restriping when you do repaving.
Yeah,
And we knew that the repaving in West Main would be a massive like thing that had to be done anyway. So having the streetscape not happen had this little silver lining. But when they do the utility work, is there a way to make sure that the repaving that happens, and it'll probably be segment by segment, not comprehensive across the entirety of West Main? How do we make sure that that repaving and the restriping that goes with it goes into our desired condition rather than restoring the existing condition that we then have to go undo?
yeah, that's a question that I still have outstanding with Public Works and utilities, because we know that they have the utility plans for what goes in the ground underneath.
Yep.
They haven't come up with the maintenance of traffic for what happens while they're doing the construction. They haven't come up with what gets laid down afterwards.
So that sounds like awesome, having that like plan laid in, like here's the next condition.
The other thing that we're talking about with them is there some sort of interim step? Like, you might need to still come back through and do a full top layer on everything, because you're doing piece by piece. You're gonna have some differences in how things settle out over time.
Yeah.
And so once you get to the end of that 3-year project of tearing out every pipe and putting down new pavement, then you need to come in and probably put in a top layer that keeps everything consistent across the entire corridor.
Maybe, but I wouldn't count on that, like.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at, is like, what are you guys' plans for what goes on top? And they're not fully.
And I'll also observe that with the Belmont Bridge redo, we did use that as an example to show that the world did not end when lanes got narrow, or in this case, parking will go away, probably because of the repaving. And that is an opportunity to say, hey, can we like manage with less width of road for cars? Won't be an apocalypse.
Well, and some of the gift that we already have with West Main is we have a lot of space for bikes. It's just not comfortable space. And so if we can move that space to somewhere that it's comfortable within the curb to curb area that we have, we might not have to take much parking in order to keep the bike lane protected. Like, there might be some places sort of towards the ends that you need to move some parking around, but we're not talking about large scale parking.
I have a second question, but I see others with their hands up.
Can I interrupt and
Sure.
let Natalie go first?
Sure.
Hey, so my question was kind of following up on what Peter was saying about parts of the road are going to be closed for construction. Do we have some kind of like formal or less formal study on watching what happens to traffic as it's rerouted elsewhere, and paying attention to how maybe that could lend itself to closing down West Main in a more permanent way to cars at some point?
I don't know that we have that sort of study baked in to their maintenance of traffic plan. So usually when you're doing something this big, you have to come up with a very detailed plan of how traffic is going to be maintained, because VDOT loves cars, basically. They want to make sure that the cars are going down the roads, and even if you're constructing things, you have to make sure that the trade is still going through. So that there's going to be that plan. I don't know if there's going to be something in that plan of like monitoring. There's probably going to be monitoring of the plan does what it says you're going to do, and not necessarily that this is detailing or demonstrating something that we want in a future condition. So
I think, Natalie, what you're saying reminds me of when Water Street was closed for a while and it changed traffic patterns. And if we had done a better job of collecting data during that project, it could maybe help inform some things now. I think if we had street light, there's a way to collect some of that data later, but also I think now that Ben and I are in this position, we can collect at least some stuff to answer the questions that you're asking. But also, since the MOT hasn't been established, that like we can work with public service and kind of see how that plays out and how that maybe affects all types of traffic along that corridor. And I don't know if Ben wrote this in your updates, but you know, some of this construction is gonna go all the way up to Rugby. So all up along University Avenue, not just West Main.
Yeah, I forgot that part.
Cool, thank you.
It's a maintenance of traffic plan. So when you're doing construction, you have to have a plan that says, we can keep things moving around here. Sometimes they're not necessarily saying we're keeping everything the way it is, but they're saying this is as good as we can keep things going around here based on the construction work we're doing. So you might still come across some construction sites that like it's really hard to get around, but that's the best they could do according to their plan.
Oh yeah, parking on Main. Most of the parking on Main during the day is just UVA employees.
I don't have a parking study that verifies that. So
Yeah, you're probably right, but we.
I like based on the number of people that I know and seeing their cars on West Main every day. That's anecdotal, but UVA's building that like giant garage on Fontaine, which should help parking. And apparently there's going to be a big garage at the corner where they're tearing down all those apartments. That's maybe rumor as well.
Sorry, which corner?
JPA and Emmett.
Oh, the new building?
That's an apartment complex. That's not gonna be a UVA parking deck. That's
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a very large apartment complex for student housing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which has actually very little amount of parking associated with it for the amount of beds that we're putting in. So they are looking at putting a parking deck in North Grounds at the intersection of Copley and Massey. But that's more servicing like JPJ and the sports facility up there. The Fontaine one is actually going to be an interesting change to where they're parking people. I think they're going to be moving some folks from the hospital who are parking at the hospital, but also folks who are parking in the Ivy garage. So it may not impact West Main parking as much, but sort of the traffic flow coming from the Ivy garage across the corner might change a little bit. And then maybe some of the parking on West Main will be impacted just based on people who are trying to get a parking spot in the hospital garage and then they realize it's overparked and
it already is.
Right. So some of that might get fixed or at least addressed with the Fontaine garage and the bus services that they're going to be running from Fontaine to the hospital. But I don't know that it'll be enough for us to be like, yay, the parking problems on West Main are all fixed. We don't need permits anymore.
Well, I was just in the vein of like eliminating a side of like if you cut the eastbound side and just like have people like some Maya and the butcher shop and like all those businesses can still have like some parking. But yeah, that's where my brain was going with that.
Yeah. Well, we got a while to think about the designs, which is the good.
Basically, riding down Main Street for the next 4 years is going to suck because I'm sure they're going to pave horizontally across it when they tear up a pipe, and so it's just going to be bumpy and garbage for the next 4 years.
Yeah, it's not going to improve us.
But it's just, I don't, again, I should have read your notes. But a lot of this, most of you all know, is like kind of work that had been planned when the West Main project was supposed to get done. That project never got done, so they've been pushing this off for quite a while. So this is like, they've been itching to get in there and get these utilities repaired and upgraded.
It's been about a decade of them talking about this project, and now that we're ready to move forward with the project, they're like, all right, time to go. So we'll wait for them this time and then come back with something better.
Did you have a second question, Peter?
Only that hopefully this will also address some of the horrific ADA issues that exist for people who walk on West Main Street, which I would argue are worse than the bike problems on West Main in many ways. So is that likely to happen?
I'm not sure how the ADA transition plan and the construction on West Main are going to interface with each other, but I'm sure there's some discussion between.
Yeah,
we've already identified those compliance issues, and if we're doing the construction there, there's gonna be some requirement for us to make sure that those issues are fixed at the same time.
Right.
I don't know how they've built that into their construction plans, but I would assume that is an issue.
I had some quick questions. One for you, Kyle, about the summit pilot that you said is now over. Was it planned to be over now?
It was planned to be over after spring break, which is this week.
Yeah.
And we have a meeting with the school system admin, school staff, and also police department and us internally as well. So we're meeting on the 11th, Friday of next week. Just kind of come together and see what worked, see what didn't work, what needs to be changed, and just the next steps, you know, what we should do.
And we were talking about this, was that yesterday or the day before, sort of the big takeaway that we've had is the volume has decreased. There have been a lot of complaints and issues coming out of the backside of that school for years. I mean, I was here 12 years ago working for the school bus department, and the issues were bad back there. And once we have installed this pilot, the volume of those complaints has dropped off to almost nothing.
And the nature of the complaints changed. It went from complaints from families and parents saying, me and my child or children walk or bike to school and we've always been hit by cars. And then also teachers seeing their kids being dropped off by cars in two-way traffic and those kids almost being hit by people doing three-point turns in the middle of the street. So that was the bulk of the complaints that we were getting, safety complaints. And now the bulk of the complaints are the street's too narrow for the delivery truck. And when I park my car on the side of the road, I open my door and it hits a flex post or it hits like the hill in front of my house. Those are the complaints.
So still getting some
much better.
So it's safer.
It's like safer, yeah.
We're thinking about
Different categories.
So there are definitely some tweaks that we're gonna be talking with CPD and with the schools to make to improve that. Might involve adjusting some flex posts and trying some other materials, but so far it's looked from our perspective like a pretty successful pilot.
Yeah, for sure. And we did one round of adjustments already. We added more signage. We moved the flex posts in to kind of make the road a little wider. Keeping the travel lane to the bare minimum. It did, I mean, the bus did hit some car mirrors a couple times and.
Will there be another community meeting?
We don't know.
Okay.
I think that's something we need to talk.
We're gonna go over that when we meet about it internally, so we don't wanna schedule that, we don't wanna get ahead of ourselves before we discuss it all, so it could happen.
Oh,
I think I missed, where are we talking about right now?
Belmont Avenue.
Belmont.
Yeah, it's just one block.
Just a block on the backside.
Oh, okay, in front of someone, I get it. Thanks.
Ben, do you know when the Fifth Street Road Diet materials will be made public?
They were made public 10 minutes before this meeting started.
10 minutes.
Sounds like a scheduled email.
Yeah, I
Saw the scroll on the building.
I was kind of scrambling this afternoon with our communications team to get that posted. There's a project webpage that sort of lays out what the issues are that we're trying to work through. There are several options at a few different intersections that we'd like to get some feedback on. But the gist of the project on Fifth Street is we would be taking away a southbound lane. So that's coming from Cherry Avenue to Fifth Street Station in that direction. And turning that southbound lane and the existing bike lane into a protected bikeway. Some people call them cycle tracks, I'm calling them bikeways, because that sounds nicer. So we're taking feedback starting today through the end of the month. There is a survey online that you get the link from the project page. We're also going to be doing a public open house at Jacksonville Elementary next Wednesday at 5:30. So that's the 9th at 5:30 at Jacksonville Elementary. We'll have some boards up. I'll be there if you want to point at things and ask questions. We'll have some communication staff, some consultant support. This project was actually, up to this point, is not city funded. This is actually a VDOT study. So VDOT's got a central office that deals explicitly with bike ped stuff. And they were working on a road diet and protected bike lanes, project in Harrisonburg. And they actually did not spend all of their money. They had about $150,000 left over, and they came to one of our MPO meetings or something and said, hey, we still have some money left over if anybody has a project. And I grabbed that money as fast as I could. So
Thank you so much.
The next step will be, though, the next step will involve city funds. So I do want folks to go on there and give us feedback so we know what to invest our city funds in. We've gotten a free ride from VDOT so far, and we should use that to our advantage. So I'd like to get feedback from as many people as we can by the end of the month. We'll refine the design based on that feedback, and then we're aiming to take it to council either in May or the first meeting in June to get their sort of sign off on it and directive to go forth and put the stuff on the ground. The questions in the survey don't explicitly ask what kind of materials do you want and that sort of thing. They just ask you sort of design refinements of should there be a right turn lane here or should there not be. But if you want to add details like would it be great for there to be some sort of protected barrier here, please add that in. As much feedback as you'd love to give, we'll take it and try to address our designs and our plans as necessary. I'm really excited about this project. This is sort of the first rubber hitting the road kind of project for us. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what you do with this.
For that open house, do people need to get there at 5:30 or is it just kind of walk in?
And it's walk in anytime between 5:30 and 7.
Could you send that website to the list tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
There should be also something on the city's webpage now.
Yeah, I got it. I'm about to put it on Facebook and put it in the.
Yeah, awesome. It would be nice to come from the city asking us instead of, you know, I heard this is here and this is here and this.
Yep.
That'd be nice. Thank you.
Thompson.
Yeah.
And see if Afton can include all of these in the city scoop to have it go out to a broader audience too.
I believe that they are planning on doing that already.
Excellent. Cool. Thanks.
There's gonna be a huge amount of pushback on that.
And there's going to be a huge amount of support.
Right. Yeah. That is my question. Is it like a matter of that this is happening and what kind of protected lane do you want? Or is it, do you want this to happen?
So this is about the third or fourth time that we've gone to the public with an alternative for this.
Okay.
There can be an answer in the survey of hell no, don't do this.
Okay.
There is that option. We have baked that into the survey, but this has been in our bike ped master plan for a while to have some sort of protective facility going down that way. And so it's a matter of how do we get that done? And this is our latest iteration of trying to figure that out. The last one was probably 2021, 2022. We came forward with a solution that would have taken out a lane in both directions. And that one did get a lot of pushback because the traffic models showed, especially in the morning, all that traffic coming off I-64 coming into town, coming into UVA Hospital or downtown was backing up from Cherry all the way onto the interstate. And so this alternative, we were like, okay, not the northbound, can't take that away because that causes a lot of problems, like even on the interstate, which is 1.5 miles away. But the southbound, the traffic analysis didn't really show as much of an impact in the southbound. So maybe that's where the space is. Maybe that's the opportunity. So that's what this project is trying to evaluate is, okay, we know that taking a lane from both sides is way too much for everybody, but how about just one side? That might work. So yeah, give your feedback on that. I hope it works.
A longer turning lane into Wegmans will probably fix the pushback.
Yeah.
Or at least the like bottleneck that I imagine as a person who drives to Wegmans occasionally.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the first questions you'll run across in the survey is what is the extent of this project? And part of what you need to consider when you're thinking about that is VDOT is about to come in right behind us and do their project studying from Harris Road to Old Lynchburg Road on the other side of the interstate. And can we extend our temporary bike lane all the way to Fifth Street Station? Or should we stop at Harris Road and sort of let them do their business south of there and figure out what is the solution for that intersection at Fifth Street Station? Because we know from our traffic models in the long term, that's gonna be the problem. That left turn lane, but also the straight lane. If we don't have enough capacity there, it's gonna back up enough to shut down Harris Road intersection, and then it's gonna start backing up further, and
Because it already does.
it already does on the worst days, but we don't wanna make every day the worst day. But do we wanna like do that in the short term? Is that a sacrifice we're willing to make in the short term to get people to Fifth Street Station from our fancy new bikeway? Or is that a big enough issue that we wanna say, let's pump that to VDOT for another 6 months, because they're gonna start up a study towards the end of the summer dealing with that stretch. So that's sort of a planning decision where I don't want to make that decision. I'd love you guys to tell them what way to go with that. So that's the first question you're gonna run into on that survey is how far should we go?
Anything else?
Yeah.
We'll move on.
What's the timeline once you guys get feedback of like next steps and things like that?
The timeline would start being dictated by what materials we're using. So we would look to go to council to get that approval for whatever design we're moving forward with at the end of May, beginning of June. And then once we have that approval, we're running to figure out what materials we can get on the ground and how fast we can get them. Ideally, that happens, within that first 6 months, because once fall hits, we kind of lose the ability to put anything on the ground because the guys who collect the leaves are the same ones who put stuff on the ground for us.
Yeah.
So we have a bit of a timeline to sneak into so we can do it this year. So yeah, don't ask for materials that are too complicated for us to find. No like decorative boulders, please.
Okay, the next thing we wanted to talk about was bike walks, branding. We have Meredith here. Thank you for sending out the materials a few days ago to the email list. I hope everyone had a chance to look at them. Tommy, do you think we can put them up for ourselves and for the people on Zoom? Do you think that's possible?
Okay, you
I
guys
found
did?
that one, yeah.
The one that you didn't open.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I did open, I have it open right here, I don't know why I did that.
I know Tommy's gonna wanna say some things, but I would just like to say, this is not like you're choosing between one concept or the other. It's that we have to choose one to then make iterations to. So we just love to hear what you do and don't like about each of them, what's working and what's not, or what you'd like to see that's not there, and we'll take that back into our next round of iterations. And you are not gonna hurt my feelings by saying anything, so.
So yeah, we want to get something stand up soon ahead of Bike Month. We brought this to the Piedmont Mobility Alliance on Monday, but you guys are probably a more important group to get feedback from, because as I told James earlier, we're planning on getting like a 10 by 10 tent that says Bike Walk Seville. We're planning on getting a tablecloth that says Bike Walk Seville. I know BPAC wants to go to different communities like West Haven Day or, wherever to kind of maybe, make the city and BPAC more representative of the city. And therefore you're going to be representing yourselves, whatever branding and marketing we choose here. I do have opinions, but like I did for Monday, I think maybe I'll keep those to myself and get some feedback from you all first. So option number one, we are why don't you give some background context on where maybe some of this came from?
Sure. This is all one concept essentially. This is the page that shows like the child brands of Bike Seville and Walk Seville. but the original bike Seville logo was a circle with like a little path and some blue sky, but it was much different colors. And so I think what I heard was, could we see what it might look like to update that a little bit? And so this full system kind of still nods to that and appreciation of that and carries that in, but it's a little bit more updated. I think the colors are a little bit more modern. And then we're also adding this like movement that feels like freedom and getting outside, and it feels a little more friendly and welcoming for people who might not like already have involvement in any groups that walk or bike, or maybe they've never been to VPAC, or they're new to town or whatever. So it's kind of like a little bit more inviting. Yeah, these are the words that we discovered during our early sessions of what we wanted to conjure up from people when interacting with the brand.
I will say, I showed that logo to a couple of my coworkers and they all said it felt very friendly, so.
Cool.
So this here is Bike Walk Seville with, again, this is a city managed project as of today. But you know, we're wanting this to be very much like a regional program. So we've got the state of Nevada.
It's Albemarle County and it's relatively excited. Which Peter
I like this. I think it's kind of cool. I mean, again, I kind of feel like not everybody has to know that this is Albemarle, but those that do, like, I think will understand the context and why we have it that way. And then obviously the city of Charlottesville baked in the middle there.
Not to scale.
Yeah, as the county rep, I strongly advise to not blow up Charlottesville. That will really incite a lot of anger.
That was my best thought.
Do please. I mean, it's a cool design, but man, it would piss off the board.
Well, what doesn't piss off the board?
Right, but I'm just saying, if you wanna, it's a cool logo, but it either make the Albemarle County bigger or make Charlottesville smaller, because that would
It
not.
looks like you're making a statement.
It looks like you're making a statement.
You can't see Charlottesville if you make it to scale, so it's
So,
okay.
so
It
if you're
doesn't
bringing
have
it
to.
in to mollify Albemarle County, don't do something that'll piss them off, right? Like, that's kind of the thing, like, they didn't ask for having their shape on there.
Also, look at the shape of Charlottesville.
It's pretty whack.
It's like,
It's
crazy.
it's like an octopus.
It's not very recognizable.
Okay, I don't wanna harp on that,
Yeah,
but that
yeah,
doesn't even need
yeah.
to be part of
Concept
it,
two.
but. And so this one is basically taking all of the materials that we did for Bike Month last year. And just saying, oh, what would that kind of look like as an identity? And so I didn't change, I used the exact same colors, the stark black and the green, just to get like a very different look. And we've gotten a lot of feedback already, but I'd love to hear from you guys that we haven't heard from already. I think some of the feedback we've gotten is like, I like the clear, like all caps lettering, I like the iconography, but the color is just too stark, or maybe try a different font, or like round some corners so it's not so like aggressive. But then some other people really like it because it's like, feels like an imperative, like bike Charlottesville, walk Charlottesville, like get out there, do it, like we're here, we're allowed to be here, all that kind of stuff. Tommy, can you go to the next page? That has the sub brands on it.
This one?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the bike and the walk can be separated out, and those don't necessarily have to be the icons, but
Those icons look way better independently than the other softer ones do.
Alright, bear with me for a second.
there's a side by side if you go to the last page.
Like this softer bike walk Seville is way more appealing, but like bike Seville and walk Seville in the like bolder, harder brandings. But
My take on it is that the left one, the bike walk one, seems a lot more of a touristy or recreation one. And then the right's a lot more actual transportation. And I know from a county standpoint, we already have a very healthy recreational scene for biking. We don't need to help that grow. We're trying to really work on transportation and safety. So I prefer the message of the right one, but I like the colors of the left one. I like the kind of in between. But I just don't want it to be too much. I don't want to be seen as a recreational push to bike or walk around as much, especially in Albemarle.
Nat, let's have Natalie, so.
Okay. I really like that point about it being leisure versus kind of the transportation necessity or choice. So, well, I agree. The left side is friendly was the first. I like wrote it down as a note to say before you even said it aloud, because I think it is a nice way of feeling. Or like trying to get more inclusive and like families can do it, and it's not scary to bike, or we're working on making it not scary to bike. But then can we go back?
Just wait one sec, keep talking.
Yeah, sure. So then but if we did like the one on the left, I just had a note for where it says bike / walk Seville. If the slash is on the bike line, then the walk line's up, and that might kind of look a little nicer. But then on the right side, the square letter ones, I really like the bike walk icon with the slash in it. I thought that's very effective, to have the slash there. Yeah, I think I love the icons on the right. The left with the bird and the mountains. Yes, Charlottesville has trails, but we also have buildings, and we are a city. And so I would like to see that reflected in the friendlier side. And I do wonder what would the right side look like with the left's colors, so it would have that friendlier feel. I think that's an interesting idea.
I was just thinking about that same thing that Natalie just said about the colors, and I'm kind of the same mind here where the blue and the green is very touristy and it's very friendly. But you go back to the side by side, and I think it's cool, but I'm with Alberic, where the kind of more bold and simple design on the right kind of sends more of like an exclamation point on what's happening. And just from like a design standpoint, I think that the right, I mean, there's so many options you could do with that. I mean, like that one up in the corner, like bike walk could be pink and yellow, or the side by side could be like blue and orange if it's around UVA. Like the color palette on the left or on the right is kind of endless. I mean, you could have so many different versions of that for whatever shirt or poster or sign or anything like that. And it's really simple, which I think people understand that a lot better.
My sense is that the stuff on the left is a little too wishy-washy. And if it's a question of visibility to make a statement, those colors are going to be pretty invisible at a distance. The words are going to start to melt away. I like the contrast on the right. I especially like when there's a green outline on black. It makes it bold, makes it visible. It says something strong as opposed to, well, is that bike? It's bike, not bike.
Michael, you had
Yeah, I really like, just to hit on what other folks have said, I think I really like the iconography on the right. I think it lets you like kind of shrink down the words and still read them really quickly of like what's going on, what's happening. And then the circle logo on the left-hand side, it's almost giving like beach to me, rather than like mountains, and like what I would associate more so with like the Charlottesville landscape, if that's what the goal was. I think it's maybe the bird, because it kind of looks like a seagull is like throwing me off, but yeah. And then I think the colors on the right, I like that idea of like changing the color depending on where you are in town, potentially, like different areas, you could do different colors with it, so.
Natalie, did you have your hand raised still, or?
Yeah, I raised it again because I did want to note that when I first looked at these, I was like, oh, obviously left. And then the more I've thought about it, I do appreciate the kind of boldness of the right, but I do want to kind of bear in mind that we're trying to get everybody on a bike from, 8 to 80 and beyond. And so the kind of like more like punk rock of the right side, I don't want it to feel like that's too niche, where you have to be like militantly pro bike in order to join the group. So that's why I do kind of still like the friendliness of the left. I'm not 100% on either, which I know is not a useful thing for feedback necessarily.
I
but
prefer that better, honestly, than some other comments. But yeah, go ahead, Natalie.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that we're keeping in mind that like while all of us in this room are like, yeah, bikes, we also still want to be like, hey, oh my gosh, please come join us on a bike. And having and just making sure that we meld those two inclinations together.
So when you say that, are you talking about like who would wear this t-shirt, or are we talking about like who the attention that this poster is going to get? Like when we talk about the people who prefer this one or this one, meaning the public, like in what context is that preference? Is it like I'm going to wear the shirt, or I can see that poster over there?
I mean,
no, go ahead, Natalie.
Well, I was thinking, I'm envisioning this as like, we have brochures printed, we have this, it's a city website affiliation. There's wherever this is visible is someone who is not already our audience. Like all of us are already interested in bike walking. So who are the people who we need to pull in with this? And are they going to feel comfortable and welcome? And like let me go check on the website. And if it's like, oh, is this a club I'm allowed to be in? Feeling versus, oh, this is friendly and nice. Let me look into it more. Oh, I can bring my kids. Oh, my grandmother can join because, so I'm not quite sure where this is going to be used, but for, bringing people along for signage, I think anytime there's curly cues, that is going to be harder to read from far away. So if we're talking about labeling paths versus bringing people on board, I'm not quite sure where this is going to be used, but that was my thought for my previous comment was when we're trying to bring people aboard or provide information to people who aren't already on our team, what's going to be the best way to get them to feel welcome?
I'm curious if we can potentially use, the font and iconography of the right side, but use color palettes to make it more friendly. Or if we're trying to make the punk rock t-shirt, still have the black and white version, but like if there's a version that's green and orange or some other more friendly palette of colors, like maybe we can pull it off and still get the thing that speaks to all of us with the boldness without scaring people away.
Deb has a comment.
Yeah, I would say when I was talking about this with my coworkers, they kind of all universally saw the right side as both like aggressive and a little bit like just Jim Bro-y, which, is fine, but I think maybe adding color to the right side, you could still keep the clarity that you want, but it would become a little bit more accessible. The psychology of all of this is.
Can I share the flyer that Meredith has used previously? Because I think keeping in mind again what you guys have been talking about, how we're going to use this is important. And the context that everything's going to be built around. So, we have talked about, if we're using the right side, for example, the words and the content that are on the website, like how we communicate and the words we choose to use are going to be important to like support like a more inclusive, welcoming environment. There's a lot going on here. Maybe I need to download this so like. Wow, get out of here.
Hey, Tommy, while you're sorting through that, I love that you went and did a focus group. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's
Like,
small sample size.
well,
like
you know,
7 people.
That's why it's a focus group, not a universal study. What about you all? Like, what do you think? You're,
Well, I actually
seem
don't.
like you might be the kinds of people you want to hear.
Yeah, I actually don't know how to bike. But the one on the left, the blue and the green, I think is more inviting. That one makes me want to learn how to bike more than the black. And I do agree with it does give Jim Bro a little aggressive. And that kind of turns me off from wanting to bike a little bit.
Has straight out of Compton vibes. Lots of t-shirt
Yeah.
or like a bumper sticker on a matte black Tesla.
And I think a lot of people I talk to really like the blue and the green because of the boat's nature and being outside. So maybe just adding color to the red side.
Emma, did you have any thoughts?
I agree with Katie. But I do also agree about the circular one with the bird. It does give beach. But
Maybe urbanizing that logo because it's kind of cool that it's a circle too, because that is the shape of a bike wheel.
So, I guess I'm wondering like how much of like option number 1 is going to help like truly get someone to decide to go on a bike. Like if they see this logo and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna give biking a try. Like, or is it the actual programming that we're deciding to build around it, i.e. what we're gonna get into with Bike Month and all the free bike ride and clinics and instruction and e-bike vouchers and all the stuff that we're building around it is actually gonna make our community a more bike-friendly community, and therefore, what is gonna represent that? Our community is an urban environment. One of the things I think is super cool about our community that I don't think gets enough love is the idea. And I was talking with Todd Stansberry, who's the president of the Starosville Bicycle Club, and they do a lot of country riding on Monday, and he found himself starting to do more biking in town, and he was like telling me how he came across this dead end and he found a connector over there, and that he didn't know that these two roads connected, and this idea of getting to know your community better and your city better through this urban environment. And to me, option number 2 speaks to that more than option number 1. I want to get our neighbors out on a bike exploring Charlottesville and all the awesome like nooks and crannies that we have to offer. I totally get that we need to be, I mean, you can see some of the ideas that Peter, Meredith, and others and I have talked about, which is being inclusive and welcoming is very important, but I also want this committee, this group of people to also be demanding, and I want them to like demand to have right of way on West Main for a bike lane going down. And I think we're trying to do a lot with this branding. It may not be that we please everybody. So I guess maybe a question is, and maybe Natalie, you can answer this question since you have your hand raised. Are we hurting ourselves by going one way versus the other?
Well, I think oh, go ahead.
I just want to say really quickly, like we don't have to go exactly what's on the right or exactly what's on the left. Like the point of this feedback is to take that and iterate. So I think we can come up with something that solves for a lot of the feedback that we've heard today and on Monday. So I love all this feedback. I don't think that, yeah. So I don't think we're having to decide, oh, we're hurting ourselves by going this way. We're gonna update it so that it doesn't feel off-putting to people.
So
if that's the direction.
Tommy, I do think that we could hurt ourselves by going with option 2. And, you know, Meredith just said we don't need to do that. So clearly we're not going to do it. One other thing is that we don't need to have the circular logo. Like BPAC has a pretty new circular logo, which is totally separate. That is a BPAC thing that, you know, there's no requirement that we have a round logo. Like it is very interesting to hear that that bike slash paired footprints thing is quite a strong statement. Why would we make a beach shield when we have that, you know, for example? So, yeah.
Peter, I'm
I do wanna hear
interested
what
know
Natalie
why, like, it's just an honest question, like, when you say we could hurt ourselves with option two, like how do you see that for hurting ourselves?
So because I've heard a number of people, like 20 people, say that option two is a turnoff. And I've not heard anybody tell me I must have option two. I've heard people say option one is rather weak, so maybe we shouldn't probably go in that exact direction either. But the negatives attached to number two are a little bit higher than the negatives attached to number one. And I came in like preferring number two. So like I'm like, okay, well, this is people telling me that there's a little more listening that needs to happen. But I guess that's where I come from, which is that's what Meredith's asking for, is like just like more data, you know, so.
Thanks, everyone.
So it's
I'll
not,
hear it now.
we're not in a bad place, and also like it seems like the concerns about number two are possible to address more than
Yeah.
the
I would love to
problems
see
with
number
number
two
one.
with like a million different color palettes,
Yeah.
right?
It's a tough brand to manage.
One thing that was said in the Mobility Alliance that stuck, that I'd be interested to hear, just counterpoint, is one person said those footprints look like exclamation points, as if that's a bad thing. Do other people see number one as it exclamation points, and number two is that a bad thing, even if it is?
Someone else, one of my coworkers also said they look like exclamation points, but I don't know that.
I like
that's
that.
bad, so.
So I think
Yeah.
it's a statement of intent in the city and from the region.
Yeah.
I like it like in the footprints.
Yeah.
Like if you did like this pattern on it, little smiley face. It's iconic.
Yeah.
Natalie, do you want to go?
Yeah, thank you. Just for that recent one, I didn't think they looked like exclamation points until you said it, and I still kind of don't see it super clearly. I think it's a really strong logo, and I like it.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to tell. I think the left side sans serif font is different than the right side, just with different kerning, right? That is a totally different typeface on the left.
Correct.
Okay, so I would be interested to see the left sans serif with the right sizing to see if maybe that looks a little friendlier, because kind of, Tommy, you framed it a little bit as like advocacy versus inclusivity. You know, are we using this to be the people who march and charge and ask for things, or are we using it to say, hey, we're here, like join us? And so I think in that sense, I would say it's probably more important to be inclusive, because we already are going to be advocating, and the logo doesn't need to speak for us. We'll be there and we'll be loud on our own. And also, two people have used the term touristy in what sounded like a negative way. And I'm a little curious about that because of a couple of things. One is Charlottesville has tourists and they help pay for stuff, which is great. But also, when we want tourists to come to town, this is something I talk to people about all day at my job, where I'm talking to people who are coming from out of town for events. I always say, hey, we have a train station and it's within walking distance of the hotels you're going to stay at. So you don't have to rent a car. You don't have to worry about that, because I want people to walk when they're here. I want people to bike when they're here. And expanding our biking network for tourists, I think would be great. And so I don't know that touristy is necessarily a bad thing, because to me, that is part of the inclusivity of it all. Like, oh, welcome, here's a bike is good. So I'm not confident that touristy is a bad thing in this connotation. It's unavoidable in our area where we have lots of things that people come to for touristy reasons, and it has that kind of welcome inclusiveness that I think would be helpful for getting more people on board.
Natalie, so just to that point, I mean, I've always looked at this website project as a resource for everyone, especially tourists. You know, when I go to a different city, like I'm gonna go to Roanoke next weekend, I'm looking for resources. And I've come across websites that I'm like kind of unclear. It's like, are you the definitive guide to biking and walking and running in your city? And it's always unclear. And it's funny because while I see the left as more touristy, I feel the right as more definitive, like more, it gives me the feeling of like more, yes, this is the definitive bike walk resource in our community. But
Yeah.
continue on what you're saying. I just want to say.
Well, I would, if I was looking at the website, I would see, oh, is it a .gov? And then I know that's the definitive guide. That's kind of what I would be looking for. Yeah.
I would be the opposite of that. I'm like, oh, this guy's, that position's been vacant for 3 years and they haven't updated their website.
Yeah. And one of the things that, when I was running for council, someone called and said, hey, we just got back from Pittsburgh and they have this incredible biking map and we want to show you. And so I met them and they gave me the Pittsburgh biking map that they give to tourists when they come. And it had, here's all the protected lanes, here's the ... share rows, here's the just painted lanes. So it was like a get around by bike. And obviously that's going to be useful for locals as well, but especially encouraging people who aren't from here to get on a bike. So again, I don't know if the font is going to drive that or the support system we have outside of that. But I would agree that the right side is a little more aggressive, almost in a clubby way, where I think it is not as welcoming. Or if someone is, you know, I'm thinking about the kids and I'm thinking about the little old ladies, what's going to draw them in? We're already in, that speaks to us. Who are the people who we need to get to join?
That's kind of what I was thinking when you asked that question about what's so bad about touristy, and then also I think about like, you know, who is that like softer logo for? You know, I looked at that logo and immediately thought of every other outdoor like white person attended festival that I've ever been to. Like that kind of looks like the branding for that. You know, and I don't mean that it's bad branding, but I'm just saying it's kind of on par with a lot of like outdoor touristy. Because like, I mean, if I don't think I use the word touristy, but when I think about that iconography and touristy, I think of specifically outdoor touristy. I don't think.
Yeah, I would be interested to see
touristy or like, you know, visiting the city, you know, as a city. It's like that. And it's just because of, you know, where that kind of vibe has been in American culture, you know? So, you know, I think I just saw the right as a little more general and applicable to more people in more situations.
Yeah, and I would love to see that kind of softer sans serif on the right side and see if maybe that does the trick. And then I love the right side logo and I like it much more than the beachy one.
I think I'm gonna stop us there. I know people have more things to say. Do you just quickly have any clarifications or anything else you need from us?
I don't think so. Thank you. Thank you for being.
Thank you so much for putting that together.
If people have pressing things, could they still email you this
Yeah,
evening?
totally.
From your feedback, and
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with all of that.
Cool,
And what you
thanks.
come up with. We have 6 minutes left, Tommy. Do you have anything you want to talk about very quickly with?
Yeah, very quickly, I'm gonna send out an email to VPAC here in a minute, with the volunteer sign up for Bike Month. And if you are interested in helping us out, we're trying to do a bunch of stuff and we need some volunteers. One thing I think that would be maybe two things that might be super helpful. Fridays after 5, bike valet. It's a pretty simple gig. We need 2 people. You take bikes, but you also promote VPAC and Bike Month at the Bike Valet at Fridays after 5. It's usually pretty fun to do that. I can provide more details if you're interested, but just sign up on the Google form. We're also gonna have free guided bike rides on Saturdays out of the farmers market on the easy routes with Parks and Rec. And we're gonna have a tent and table. It won't be branded probably by then, but that would also be a good opportunity to promote BPAC and Bike Month. So yeah, sign up if you're interested in there, and you'll see other opportunities there to engage if you're interested. And we have a Bike Month meeting on Peter, was it Monday?
Yeah, the 11
Is that
o'clock
Monday
on
11? So
Monday.
if you're interested in joining the planning, just reach out to Peter.
Yeah.
He's got the invite.
Can you just say what is Bike Month? What's the goal?
Sure, yeah, so National Bike Month is like historically kind of like a thing that the League of American Cyclists have put on, and municipalities across the globe now will do different events and programs all about just getting more people on bikes, promoting bikes, programs, infrastructure. I think it probably started with Bike to Work Day. And that this year that's Friday, May 16th, I think. So that's another
So
opportunity.
Bike to Work Week, the whole week is Bike to Work.
And it's also Bike to Work Week. So for a few years there, we had gone down, I think Peter and others were the main leaders of just doing Bike to Work day. And that was successful. Last year, we brought it back to Bike Month, and we had a whole calendar of events, and I think it was pretty successful. So we're rolling with that this year.
So the increase by.
Next year of the bike.
The year of the bike. What's that now?
To celebrate the
Yeah.
to celebrate bicycling and.
There's gonna be a one thing that is not in that Google form. TJPDC is gonna have a Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission is gonna have a business bike challenge that you can sign up for. So if you are part of an organization like the county, the city will have a team. So if the county wants to have a team, you can set up teams and you compete. You can kind of compete. People can accrue mileage for a team, and last year the city won. Just want to point that out there. No big deal. So yeah, so it's all fun. So those details are still forthcoming, but we'll make sure to share them with BPAC. You should get the village school and just get all your students who bike to school signed up.
Like it's hilarious. Like the two of us, it's a different day.
Bike walk.
If we do last year, so.
Just bike and roll.
Bike to
Walk
school
and
day.
roll. Walk to school day in October.
Have I kind of been tangentially aware of that? If that's something that's going to, what, Bike to School Day as a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a thing.
cool. Cause I didn't.
Yeah, kind of, I was wondering if there's if we're tying Bike Month in May to any apps. I know I use Strava a lot to log a lot of my rides.
So
if that's an encouragement, because Strava also sells anonymized data to city planning, so that could incentivize people to
We have not used Strava.
Okay.
And part of the reason, and I'm gonna say this, and you guys can disagree with me, we all use different apps. We don't agree on what app we want to use for biking, so that's probably not something we're gonna dive into this month. I know that with the easy routes, we have been setting them up on private GPS.
Okay.
So that they're available through that. You can download them through that,
Right.
but we'll also look at figuring out how to post them on Strava and Map My Ride, is that the other one?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we just got into this earlier in the week of
Okay.
oh, we're all using different apps and have very strong opinions about that, so.
Strava.
I don't wanna jump into.
there is an app actually. It's called Connecting VA, and Rideshare is going to use that for the business challenge. So you can record your miles in that app, and that's a rideshare app. So that's another app you can do for carpooling,
Walking.
Yeah, all types of stuff.
And if you're a UVA employee, in which case you should be using Wahoo Connects, which is their travel demand management software that they're using to track rides. That's also going to pay you money
if you track your rides through their app, so.
I'm just gonna get a car.
So our next meeting, our next meeting is the first day of May. And so we have some time to like kind of still talk about, bike month stuff at our next meeting. But that app will sync up to like several other apps if you are using them, and it just goes to that.
Yeah, it's relevant.
James, can I mention two things?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just quick, any announcements?
Yeah, so I'm a city meeting with county and people that go there. So there's a STAR study happening in the city. That's Ridge, McIntyre, that stuff. There's also two happening in the county, and they're gonna have surveys released from VDOT kind of asking what kind of improvements you want, like safety stuff, similar to what you saw. And if you did the one for stars in the city here, I also encourage you to do that one. And then secondly, we're deep in the.
Say where those studies are. Let's do stars.
I don't know where they are yet because I think they're coming very soon.
Okay, so they're not the 29 corridor.
29 corridor and the 29-250 interchange.
Right.
So there's two different ones, but the 29 corridor from Hydraulic up to Woodbrook, so up to the Lowe's.
Folks here are interested in, for sure, even though it's not.
Yeah,
city.
if you all go to Trader Joe's and whatever that kind of stuff. And secondly, we just sent our transportation chapter for the comp plan to get kind of edited and made pretty before it goes for a planning commission next month, I believe. So if you're also interested in that, that kind of outlines the vision we have for transportation in the county. Again, I know we're city residents, but we all go to the county for stuff and it's pretty intertwined. So I just want to make that aware that there's also stuff happening outside of our little cocoon that we have here. That's all I have.
Thank you, Alan. Unless there's anything else, I will propose that we adjourn. Thank you for your discussion.
All right, Natalie.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
Thanks for coming, Natalie. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, John.
Thanks, sorry I couldn't be there in person.
No worries. And.